Welcome to Hungarian Insights, your go-to channel for exploring Hungary's rich history, vibrant culture, and language learning resources. Whether you're a student planning to study in Hungary, an expat eager to grasp the nation's heritage, an individual preparing for the Hungarian citizenship exam, or a bilingual student seeking to complement your studies, our podcasts serve as a captivating starting point, and our smart, modern learning tips and resources are tailored to make your journey enjoyable and effective.
Okay, so last time we talked about that Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867, this kind of political agreement that came out of the ashes of that 1848 revolution. So what exactly did this compromise mean for Hungary and Austria? How did it change their relationship?
Well, think of it like a power-sharing agreement,
Okay,
but with, all the fancy royal stuff, crowns and scepters and all that.
I like where this is going.
Basically, it created a dual monarchy. Officially it was called the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Right.
And they split the Habsburg lands into two kind of autonomous halves, Austria and Hungary.
So they were separate.
They were, in a way. Each had their own parliament and government, and they controlled their own internal affairs.
Okay, but they were still under the same umbrella.
Exactly. They shared a monarch, dealt with foreign policy together, and had a combined military. It was this balancing act, trying to appease the Hungarians who wanted more autonomy,
Yeah,
while also keeping the whole empire from falling apart.
trying to keep everyone happy.
Exactly. Which, as you can imagine, is never easy.
Never is. So were there any parts of the compromise that maybe didn't work out so well? Anything that, looking back, you think maybe foreshadowed some problems down the road?
That's a great question. And yeah, there was one major flaw. It didn't really address the concerns of all the other nationalities within the empire.
Oh, right. Why couldn't
Who
work?
groups like the Czechs, the Slovaks, the Romanians, they were all still under Habsburg control.
But they didn't get the same autonomy that Hungary got.
Exactly. And that definitely created some tension and conflict later on.
Yeah, especially with nationalism on the rise all over Europe.
It was a recipe for trouble.
So even though there were problems, I guess the compromise did bring some positive changes for Hungary, right?
Oh, for sure. For a while there, it ushered in this period of growth and modernization for Hungary. Budapest, which became a co-capital with Vienna, it flourished.
I love Budapest.
Me too. It's such a vibrant city.
It's amazing to think that the Budapest we know and love today was shaped in part by this time of revolution and compromise.
It's a great reminder that history is full of surprises.
It really is, but as you said, trouble was brewing on the horizon.
Always.
World War I was coming. And that was going to test the strength of this whole Austro-Hungarian Empire.
It would change everything.
So how did Hungary handle that massive world event? How did they deal with the war?
Well, remember, Hungary was part of the empire.
Right.
So they were bound to Austria's fate. Hungarian troops fought alongside the Austrians, mostly on the Eastern Front against Russia.
Given the history between Hungary and the Habsburgs, I'm guessing there was some mixed feelings about fighting for the empire.
Oh, absolutely. It was a complex situation. Some people saw it as a chance to prove their loyalty, to solidify their place within the empire.
Okay.
Others, though, they saw it as a burden, a war they were forced into.
They didn't have a choice.
Not really. So Hungary was divided, even in the face of this huge threat.
And as the war went on, I imagine those divisions only got worse.
You're right. Especially as casualties mounted, the war just dragged on and on.
It was brutal.
It was, and by 1918, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was just crumbling under the weight of it all.
It couldn't hold on any longer.
And Hungary, they found themselves at a crossroads. They had to face that age-old question. What does it mean to be an independent Hungarian nation?
It was time to decide their own future.
Exactly.
So what did they do? Did they finally seize the opportunity to break free from the Habsburgs?
In October 1918, right in the middle of the chaos of the collapsing empire,
Wow.
they declared themselves a republic.
A bold move.
It was. They officially broke away from the Habsburg dynasty. It was a moment of hope, of optimism. They truly believed that an independent Hungary was finally possible, a kind of echo of that 1848 spirit.
That's inspiring.
It is, but declaring independence is one thing.
Right.
Actually achieving it, making it stick on the world stage, that's a whole other challenge.
So did this newfound freedom come at a price?
It did. Their moment of triumph, it was short-lived. The victors of World War I, they had their own ideas about how to redraw the map of Europe. And that led to the Treaty of Trianon in 1920.
I've heard of that.
It had a devastating impact on Hungary.
I can imagine. It's been called a national trauma, hasn't it?
That's not an exaggeration at all. The treaty took away huge chunks of Hungarian territory. Transylvania, Slovakia, Croatia, even parts of what's now Serbia.
Wow, so much land.
Hungary was reduced to a fraction of its former size.
That must have been incredibly painful, to fight for freedom and then be stripped of so much.
It was a crushing blow. And it fueled this resentment, this desire to revise the treaty.
I can understand why.
It became a major force in Hungarian politics, shaping everything that happened in the years leading up to World War II.
So, in a way, the Treaty of Trianon, which was supposed to create peace, actually created more instability.
It's a tragic irony, isn't it? It created lasting grievances and resentment.
It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, trying to reshape the world can have unintended consequences.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got Hungary trying to recover from the Treaty of Trianon.
Right.
Nationalism is on the rise, and Europe is heading toward another devastating war.
Another dark chapter.
So how did Hungary navigate all of that? How did they deal with this increasingly dangerous and volatile world?
That's where things get even more complicated. Hungary is taught between wanting to reclaim their lost lands and dealing with the rising power of Nazi Germany.
Tough choices.
Very tough choices. It's a story of shifting alliances, difficult decisions, and a nation trying to figure out its identity in the middle of a storm.
So last time we left off with Hungary in a really tricky spot. They're still hurting from that Treaty of Trianon.
Yeah, they wanted that land back.
Of course, but then you have Nazi Germany getting more and more powerful.
It was a dangerous time.
How did Hungary handle that? What did they do?
Well, that's when Admiral Miklos Horthy comes into the picture. He becomes regent of Hungary in 1920.
Okay.
He's basically leading the country through this whole chaotic interwar period. Can you imagine?
Trying to keep everything together.
Yeah, balancing the nation's desire to, revise the treaty and get their land back.
They felt like it had been taken unfairly.
Exactly. And at the same time, they had to deal with this growing threat from Nazi Germany.
So which way did Horthy lean? Did he try to stay neutral or...
At first, he really tried to keep Hungary separate from the Nazis.
Smart.
He knew Hitler was dangerous, but that pull to revise the Treaty of Trianon, it was really strong.
It's hard to resist the idea of getting back what you've lost.
It is, and as Germany got more powerful, Horthy saw an opportunity.
I bet he did.
He made alliances with the Axis powers.
To get some of that land back.
Exactly, and for Hungary, those victories, even if they came from a deal with, well, let's just say, not the best people.
A deal with the devil?
Yeah, it must have felt like they were finally righting a wrong.
Yeah, like they were getting justice.
But, those kinds of alliances, they rarely end well.
They don't. Did Horthy have any second thoughts?
He did. As the war went on and the Nazis, showed their true colors.
It became impossible to ignore.
Exactly. Horthy started having serious doubts. He saw how terribly the Jews were being treated across Europe, even in Hungary.
It's a dark part of history.
It is, and it weighed on him heavily.
So he tried to resist it first.
He did. He walked this tightrope, trying to keep Hitler happy while also protecting his own people.
That must have been so difficult.
It was. But as the war got worse and the Nazis basically took control in Hungary, his resistance crumbled.
So even though he tried, in the end, Hungary was part of the Holocaust.
It's a painful truth. In 1944, the Hungarian government, under Nazi influence, started deporting their Jewish citizens to concentration camps. Hundreds of thousands of them.
It's a horrific chapter, and something that should never be forgotten.
You're right. No matter which way Hungary turned, it seemed like there were no good options.
Just impossible choices all around.
And then World War II ends.
Finally.
The Axis powers lose, but for Hungary, it wasn't a happy ending.
No.
They ended up going from one totalitarian regime to another.
The Soviet Union.
Exactly. The Soviets took control of Eastern Europe. In 1949, Hungary became the Hungarian People's Republic, basically a Soviet puppet state.
So all those dreams of a truly free and independent Hungary.
Gone, at least for a while. It was a time of oppression where people's freedoms were restricted.
But I can't imagine Hungarians just gave up. That desire for freedom, it must have still been there.
It was. It might have been hidden, but it was burning under the surface. And in 1956, things boiled over. You had those uprisings in Poland, and people in Hungary were getting more and more frustrated.
So another revolution.
It was an incredible moment. People from all walks of life, students, workers, intellectuals, they all took to the streets.
What were they fighting for?
They wanted political reforms, free elections, and for the Soviet troops to leave their country.
It's like history repeating itself, like those earlier struggles against the Habsburgs.
It really is. They were fighting for the same things, the right to choose their own destiny.
And for a little while, it seemed like they might actually succeed.
It did, didn't it? The world was watching, hoping for the best.
But the Soviets weren't going to let that happen.
No, they weren't. They sent tanks, troops, the whole works to crush the rebellion. Thousands of Hungarians were killed, injured, imprisoned, or forced to flee.
Another revolution crushed. It's a heartbreaking pattern.
It is, but even in defeat, the 1956 uprising had a huge impact.
Really?
The whole world saw how brutal the Soviet regime could be, and the Hungarian people showed everyone how much they wanted freedom.
Their courage was undeniable.
Absolutely. And the memory of 1956, it stayed with people. It showed that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can't be broken.
It's a reminder that freedom is worth fighting for.
Exactly. And, in a way, it helped to plant the seeds for the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union and the liberation of Eastern Europe.
So those sacrifices weren't in vain.
Not at all. They helped to change the course of history, the story of Hungary. It's a reminder that the fight for freedom is rarely easy.
It's full of ups and downs.
But it also shows that the human desire for liberty, it's incredibly powerful, and it can endure even the most difficult challenges.
It's inspiring.
It is, isn't it?
Well, this has been an amazing journey through Hungarian history.
It's been a pleasure.
So much to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Until next time.
Keep exploring and stay curious.
7-9 time.
Our podcast discussions are based on our ebook, Hungary's Hall of Fame in a Nutshell. History, literature, art, music, science, sport. Scan the QR code or check the link in the description to download your copy of Hungary's Hall of Fame in a Nutshell. As a special bonus, you'll also receive the Illustrated Companion, featuring over 100 detailed illustrations to visually enrich your understanding of the book's content. Thank you for watching.